So, hi, my name is Vaibhav Ali, and thank you for clicking on the link at the right time. This is Happiness is a Muscle. And today, the guests that we have are pretty interesting. The first guest, I'm not going to really talk about his accomplishments, but I'm going to talk about his WhatsApp status. His WhatsApp status is this content is king. And of course, only an author, only a thinker can come up with such a WhatsApp status. So that is Shatrujit for you, who believes that discontent is king. Where हमारे ज़माने में हम लोग चिल्लाते रहते हैं कि content is king, but Shatru has a total different perception and says discontent is king. Shatru, hi and welcome to Happiness is a Muscle.
Hi. Thanks for having me over, Vaibhav and Vivek. Good to be here. And yeah, discontent is king. I mean, if you're not discontented, then you just kind of coast along. It's only when you're unhappy that you change things. So
it took me a while to understand कि precisely आप क्या बोल रहे हो, but because I understood, and since we were talking about WhatsApp status, let me introduce to you Vivek Bhargava and his WhatsApp status. He says that his purpose in life is to keep increasing joy and happiness in his life. He believes happiness is a muscle which needs to be exercised every single day. So I think we have very interesting WhatsApp statuses here, and also please comment down below and let us know that what is your WhatsApp status and how it is empowering you, and also people like me who are reading your WhatsApp status and getting inspired. So over to you guys to have a fabulous conversation. I'm really looking ahead to two great minds decoding each other's belief system and patterns. And I'm going to come back at the end with my questions and we'll take it ahead from there. Thank you.
thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vaibhav. And hi, Shatru. I think
Hi,
one of
hi,
the things
Vivek.
you asked me
Happiness is a muscle, a mastery through love and pain, through heat and gain.
was that, how did this whole happiness is a muscle concept come about? So,
Hmm.
at the risk of repeating myself, I'm going to just give you a little background and a backstory how this actually happened.
Hmm.
So, I grew up in a middle class family. And when you grow up in a middle class family, the only ambition that you have in your life is to make some money,
Okay,
because you believe that once you make some money, everything else will be sorted.
great.
So, as luck would have it, I sold my company to a Japanese company called Denso in 2012.
Hmm.
So, in my mind, I had made some money.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, what happened was 9 months down the line, I found myself at the Asian Heart Hospital, and my dad was on the ventilator. And suddenly, I realized that this whole concept that money is going to sort everything, money is pretty useless as a commodity in most circumstances, right?
Hmm.
So suddenly it hit me that this whole purpose that I had in my life to make money suddenly seemed very extremely shallow.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, now in that nights of introspection, when my dad was there for 8 days and uh, they would shut off the lights at 9 p.m. and I would get sleep by 2 a.m. and I would think that what should be my purpose in life.
Hmm.
And I chanced upon this thought that what if I can spend the rest of my life increasing joy and happiness in my life, every minute, every hour for the rest of my life. I said, like, you know what, this seems like an interesting purpose to have.
Hmm.
So I wrote it down. Then I said that, okay, let me start researching on it. What is actually happiness? What is joy? So read about 30, 40 books on the topic, saw every single video there was, had conversations with people, and learned pretty interesting thoughts and interesting ideas about happiness.
Hmm.
Broadly, they can be divided into this one thing. I call it actions.
Okay.
So almost every person said that exercise, meditate, sleep adequately, be generous, show gratitude, you'll be happy.
Hmm.
And almost everybody just said this one thing. And what I realized was that nobody was talking about how do you sustain happiness.
Hmm.
So happiness chemicals are produced through dopamine, endorphins, etc. So you exercise, you'll get happiness,
Correct.
but you don't sustain it for a
It
longer period,
drops off.
right? So it just goes, right.
Correct.
I said, okay, what if, what is the things that actually sustain happiness? And I came out with this thing that every single person that I spoke to, they had these belief systems,
Hmm.
almost like mental models, frameworks, whatever XYZ. And based on that, they were able to sustain happiness for a longer period of time.
Hmm.
And then I thought that, like how Jim Collins wrote Good to Great, and there is a flywheel,
Hmm.
one improves the other, and the symbiotic relationship between the two.
Hmm.
That, okay, what if the actions and beliefs come together? And it's almost like actions lead to beliefs and beliefs lead to actions.
Correct.
And you actually create this sort of a flywheel between the two.
Correct.
And then when I researched it further, I found that nobody else was putting this perspective
Okay.
that to sustain happiness, you need to have this actions and beliefs.
Okay.
Then it came that, everybody has a baseline of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 80 and 100. Somebody else is realistic. He's 60 and 100. Now, positive or negative impact will happen in our lives. We'll go from 80 to 65,
Mm-hmm.
come back to 80 eventually, 3 months,
Okay.
6 months, 1 year.
Okay.
But what if we could work on that 80
Mm-hmm.
like as if it was a muscle through a
Okay.
combination of actions and beliefs and take it to 81, take it to
Mm-hmm.
82.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's what this whole book is about.
Okay.
How do we build up these actions in our lives on a regular basis, but also
Mm-hmm.
build up belief systems that empower us so that our baseline keeps on going up.
Okay. Okay.
Then
Okay.
all these interviews that I'm doing with people are to discover their mental models and their beliefs about different aspects of which cover happiness. So it could be
Okay.
money, it could be do you trust people, do you believe in karma, do you have any belief systems about uh, learning new things.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what we did was that in actions are limited, but belief systems can be multiple. So every
Okay.
person I interviewed has some belief system about each
Okay.
of these things that sort of help them sustain happiness.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is in a nutshell, the entire book.
And how many interviews have you done so far, and how many do you think you have left?
So actually, what I plan to do, Shatru, is that when I started off, I thought I'll do about 5, 6 interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and then make it. The book will get launched sometime in December.
Okay.
Then I realized that after doing about 15 interviews that I've done now,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that this can be an internal process
Okay.
because belief systems are actually infinite.
Correct.
And what I feel is that every person will hear a belief system.
Mm-hmm.
If that belief system empowers them, they should
Mm-hmm.
adopt it.
Absolutely.
If it limits them, they should reject it.
Correct.
So then what has happened is that I'm learning new belief systems every single interview that I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to continue. I don't
Okay.
think there is going to be any end to the interviews that I do
Okay.
because I'm learning new things every single interview I do.
Okay.
So that's what the plan is. I think we're going to continue.
But you still have the book in mind. So do you have a target for the book now?
Yes. So I think December the book will get launched.
Okay.
But the way I'm looking at it is that imagine this is like a happiness platform.
Okay.
So a happiness platform will have one part of it is a book,
Okay.
be a documentary
Okay.
on the same topic. There could be
Okay.
different interviews will come in. There
Okay.
would be an app that you can actually record the
Okay.
things that you've sort of the actions that you do every day, new
Okay.
systems you learn. So it becomes more like a happiness platform
Okay. Okay.
rather than it revolving around the book.
Okay.
The book
Okay.
becomes one of the components of this ecosystem
Fair enough. Fair
rather than
enough.
the book by itself.
Fair enough. And I think it's also one of the good things is that because as you said, it's a platform. You can have different things that keep coming, feeding into it, and going out of it. So you're not limited. So a book is at the end of the day one product consumed by one set of people who consume books, and those who don't consume books are not going to read it anyway. So yes, I think there's a good idea. So you said December. That's like 3 days away.
Yep. So the plan is by mid of December, end of December.
Okay.
So the first edit is done.
Okay.
Now it's going to go back. So I'm working with a ghostwriter who's writing the book.
Okay.
I did
Okay.
about 90 minutes interview with her every 2 weeks, every
Okay.
week actually, in the
Okay.
early days, and
Mhm.
she transcribed it, and then somebody
Okay.
helping me edit it.
Okay.
So, yeah, and
So
then
it's interesting that your book and my book would almost come out around the same time. My last book in the Vikramaditya series, that's scheduled for 20th of December. So
wow,
so
that's
we are probably going to have a release at around about the same time. So all the
awesome.
best for that.
Same to you. Same to you.
We need all of it. So yeah,
So Shatru, my first thing that I would like to cover with you, right? I think very few people are able to take up a new passion,
hmm
and in a way, obviously, sometimes it doesn't make as much money as that earlier they would make, right?
hmm
And it's a tough decision. So one of the things I want to discover is your mental model on money
hmm
and how have you taken these decisions and what is your relationship with money? So I
Okay.
think it's a very integral part of happiness in general.
Okay. Okay. So let me just first talk about money itself as what it means to me, and so let me go back to that point where you spoke about your childhood, and uh, I think most people in India who were growing up in India during the late 60s, 70s, and 80s were essentially middle class, maybe middle class, or even probably low middle class. So we all, our parents all struggled to make ends meet. Those were obviously the days of the license Raj, and things were, of course, it was definitely all pre-liberalization. So growing up for me, we never had a lot of money at home. My dad was in the armed forces, and it's not that we had a lot of money at home. So we weren't rich. We never were rich. But one of the things I realized, even as I grew up, was that my parents were not people who ran after money. My parents were. It's not that they insisted that we live within our means, we live frugal lives, but they were very clear that money is a means to an end, and it's not an end in itself. So I think somewhere along the way, as I have grown up, I have always believed that it's good to have money, obviously, and we all like money, but money is not the reason why I want to do something. If what I do gives me money, that's wonderful. So I remember even when I was in college, and obviously, and this is early 90s, when I was in college, and there used to be a lot of talk about, what do I want to do? Everyone has that thing, okay, I mean, now once we've graduated, what do we do? I must tell you that at that time I seemed to show a flair for marketing. So I had a lot of friends, and academically I was pretty good. So I had a lot of friends who kind of told me that what you should do is you should get into marketing. You do an MBA, ideally get out of either the IIMs or the XLRIs, or at least do an FMS or whatever it is. And once you're done with that, then you make a lot of money and your life is sorted. But by then, and I'm talking of probably 94, 93, 94, I had figured out that what really gave me joy was words and writing. And back in that day, I remember somebody telling me that there's not much you can do by writing. There are not too many professions that really want writers and pay for writers. So I think at that time the two professions that seemed obvious bets for someone who could write was either journalism or advertising. And that's how I kind of decided to go into advertising. And despite everyone telling me that I should actually do an MBA and be in marketing, I chose to be in advertising. And so so I think it's always, for me, what's always been more important is enjoying what I do, rather than how much money am I making. I'm also a very poor negotiator. So 9 out of 10, the guy sitting in front of me, as long as he gives me a good deal in terms of the work environment and the freedom that I want, that I need to work, uh, I rarely discuss money. I don't drive a hard bargain when it comes to money. I usually don't. I'm getting a little better in my late 40s, probably because time is running out. So but yeah, I think that's the case. So even when it came to a call 10 years ago, when I had to decide whether I wanted to continue in journalism and be unhappy, or move out of journalism and try and be happy writing fiction, it was a tough call. I think both me and my wife, who supported me no end in this journey of mine, we had a lot of conversations around money as well, because we had a small daughter. But one of the things actually my wife told me was that if you've got to do it, you've got to do it now, because at that time my daughter was 6 or 7 or 8. So she said it's better you do it now than you do it 10 years later, when we won't be able to afford. We can't afford to do this, because by then we'll need money to send her to college and all that kind of stuff. So but money was definitely a part of all those conversations. Mm, but yes, I think ultimately both me and my wife said that, look, in the long term, we've got to be happy, and if I'm happy, then it's likely that I will make some money out of it. And yeah, knock wood, I'm happy where I'm doing, and yeah, good so far.
So I'll share with you one backstory with my father, and it's a very interesting story. So what happened was I set up this company in digital marketing
Uh huh.
in 1997. So
Okay.
digital marketing came to India only in 2012, right?
Uh
So
huh.
14 years I was struggling. So after 10 years of struggle, one day my dad sat me down And he says that, Vivek, you know, you go to the office at 7 a.m., you come home at 2 a.m. Every Saturday, Sunday, you're working. You haven't taken a holiday for such a long period of time. I think in the whole family, I think you must be working the hardest.
Hmm.
Here I was like, I said, like, the pat on my back. Finally, somebody's recognizing all the effort I put in building this company, and I'm so grateful that my father is thinking this way. And then he continued. Then what is the reason that you make the least amount of money?
Okay.
So, so I said, like, somebody's pricked my bubble. It's like, and it's like, so I laughed it out loud and I said that, when God gives you less brains, then you're going to work harder. And he also laughed. I also laughed. And I told him that, a lot of people, why do they create wealth? Because they want to be happier. And this is what makes me happy.
Hmm.
So maybe I have lesser wealth, but I'm happier. And
Correct.
after days where Three Idiots kind of movies had not come out, right? So
Correct. Correct.
it's
Correct.
slightly unusual to have this conversation. But I also believe that, one of the things that I discovered in this process of learning about happiness is that success brings you happiness. It's not the happiness brings you success.
Correct.
So I've always seen, and money, I think there is a certain amount of money required, where there is a linear relationship between money and happiness. But once you reach that magic number of, they say 75,000 odd dollars in purchase parity terms, then after that, increased money does not increase your happiness.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So,
No, it's actually very interesting. Just 2 days ago, I was having a conversation with my publisher for. We're in the process of sitting and working out the contract for the next set of books that I'm going to be writing, the next series of books that I'm going to be writing, and so obviously there was a debate on even the financials, obviously. So one of the things I told my publisher was that I said that, look, you must realize that I'm not I'm not in this for money. So his concern was that there was a clause, obviously, one of those clauses: first right of refusal, last right to match, all those kind of things. So his concern was that he wanted a clause in the contract, and he was afraid that the next time around I might decide not to go with him. I might decide to go with a different publisher because that publisher gives me 2 lakh more or something like that. And I told Akash, I said that, Akash, please realize one thing, that I am I am an author and I'm writing books not because somebody's going to give me 2 lakhs of, or 2.5 lakhs more. Because if that was the case, then I wouldn't be sitting and writing books. I'd be, I'd still be a journalist. I'd be a very senior level journalist in probably one of the top business magazines or newspapers or TV channels in India. And I'd be leading a very, mm, very comfortable life and a very comfortable lifestyle. But so I'm not here for the money. I'm here because I love writing, and I want to tell stories. I want to write fiction. So my whole point was I was trying to assure him and tell him that, look, I'm not going to go away from you because somebody dangles a 2 lakh carrot in front of me, or a 3 lakh carrot. So that was the point. So that's really the between me and money. That money is very important, but it's not something that I actively chase. It doesn't come to me, and I don't judge people who run after money. But it's not something that comes to me naturally. I don't get the need to chase money beyond a point. I understand its role and its importance in keeping us going, but beyond a point, no, I don't get it.
actually, it's a very interesting thought, right? That about the contracts and that, because I've done about 20 angel investments in different digital companies, and there's always this discussion about contracts and this that in the angel thing. I just tell them, and listen, honestly. So I have this one other chapter in the book called Trust,
Uh
where
huh.
the philosophy is that I trust everyone till the time they give me a reason not to trust them. I trust everyone,
Correct.
and what I've seen is that there's this book that had influenced me, which was a book called Speed of Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Basically said was that the more people you trust, uh, everybody you trust, then you'll have relation with more people.
Mm-hmm.
And even if somebody is not fair to you, if you don't trust anyone, then you'll have relation with lesser people,
Mm-hmm.
and you will gain a lot more by having more relationships, right? So long story short, and that's what I've seen with entrepreneurs also. The more you trust them, they go out of the way to help you,
Correct.
and that's how wealth is created. So the same way the relationships are built, the more you trust your publisher, the more you trust them and they trust you, you create wealth over a long-term period just because of trust.
Correct. Correct. Actually, I think that's the problem. The problem is that I keep going back and saying, when I look at a contract, And I say, in our day-to-day lives, we go about, dealing with so many people with purely based on trust. I mean, if we were to put down each of those negotiations that we have into paper, we'd probably never move an inch forward because we'd always be sitting and negotiating the terms of trust rather than actually trusting people. So it's kind of absurd at one level that we attach so much importance to contracts, but then I also understand that contracts are only there for bad days. It's only when when things don't work out between you and me that both of us decide to pull out the contract. As long as it's working well, nobody really cares whether you take 20 days more to deliver, I take 265 days more to deliver. As long as we are happy, we are all happy. It's only when one of us becomes sad that we say, "Acha, yeah, contract nikalo. Now let's see how we can screw the other guy up." So it's sad, but it is what it is. That's the way of the world.
But actually, what you said is so right, right? If you read Professor Harari of the Sapiens and
Uh
who
huh.
introduced him, he talks about that the progress of mankind is because that we believe the same story.
Correct.
But actually believing the same story actually is believing the same trust, right? So when
Absolutely.
I buy a ticket and my ticket number is A6,
Correct.
there is in a way the guy trusts that I'm going to go and sit on A6 and not go in the first row, fight
Absolutely.
about it, right? Because
Absolutely true.
everybody would fight about that seat that they've occupied, right? Imagine that there would be no theater, there would be no movie, there would be no football
Absolutely.
match, right? So,
Absolutely.
so in a way, we have trust such an integral part of everything that we do.
Correct.
But
Correct. Correct.
there is so many people that I know that they start the relationship with this doubt of intent,
Correct. Correct.
and it is a very very sad way to live a life
Correct.
because
Correct. Correct.
overall, you doubt everybody's intent, then there's going to be so much cortisol around you, and you end up building sad organizations, have sad team members, you have
Correct.
misery in your life, and it's just a twist of faith that you just change it to trust, and
Correct.
you can actually build such amazing organization.
Absolutely. No, but also one of the interesting things about trust, and I've always found this fascinating about trust as an idea, is that, and let me just use an anecdote to kind of, you know, illustrate the point. So, for example, now if you're assuming you're going on a bus ride or something, okay, and so you get into the bus and you're going, and so it's a long journey. It's a 2.5 hour journey, and you go and you suddenly somewhere the buswala stops for a cup of chai or whatever it is. And what happens is you get down, you're having your chai, and the driver comes up to you and says that, I just want your pen. I need your pen for something. And you've got a very expensive $200 pen, and you kind of give it to him. And then you're like keeping your eye on him, saying, "Here, mera pen wapas dega ya nahi dega?" So till you get your pen back, you're a little, you're keeping your eye on the guy. And then he comes and gives you back the pen, and you get into the bus and you go. And it's kind of bizarre because you have trusted your life with that guy. Like he's driving you through mountainous hairpin bends and roads and all that, but you don't give a damn. But suddenly, when he takes a $200 pen from you, you're a little, "Hello, ye wapas dega nahi." So it's bizarre. Trust itself is such a vague concept. I think the moment you put a monetary value to it, then that's when you start worrying about. But the problem is we don't put a monetary value to life, so it's okay. I think it's fine. It's bizarre. I don't know.
Like, so for me, the way I've looked at material objects is slightly interesting. So what
Uh-huh.
I've done is that, so I'll give you an example. We had bought a nice car,
Uh-huh.
and suddenly what happened was that my basically my father felt that we should not eat something which has gravy inside the car.
Something that has
Gravy,
gravy. Gravy.
kind
Huh.
of dal or some kind of
Correct.
curry, right?
Huh.
And so basically, I at that point in time I thought about it, and I told my dad that if anything that I have today, which is a material object that I've just bought, if it forces me to change my lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
what I had in the past,
Mm-hmm.
that means I cannot afford the object as yet.
True. True.
So it could be that you buy an expensive watch and now suddenly you have to keep putting that watch into a safe every day. And
Correct.
earlier you used to leave it on top of the bookshelf or whatever XYZ, right? So
Correct.
that means you can't afford the watch yet. The
Correct.
same way, every single thing that I have, right? I'm very clear that if it's a material object,
Mm-hmm.
it can't be having any impact on the way I do things. I know
Correct.
people who buy a nice car,
Uh-huh.
they don't give it to their driver. Now
Correct.
they drive it everywhere. They
Correct.
don't let the driver drive it alone. I said, like,
Correct.
dude, I mean, you can't afford the car as yet. Don't buy it because
Correct.
you are forced to, because you fast forward 10 years, 20 years, now you'll be surrounded by wealth and
Correct.
you'll be poor because
Correct.
every single material object would make you more and more limited about things you can
Absolutely.
do, because suddenly those things are expensive, right?
Correct. Correct.
So, so one of the philosophies I have about money is that everything I upgrade in my life, it is 4x of what I used to own previously, either a
Mm-hmm.
real object or even a experience.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, it can't have any impact on the way I do things today.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do certain things today and I, you know, let's say if I buy expensive anything,
Mm-hmm.
if I have a lifestyle that I would do, let's say I would give the car to a driver, I'd give it to a friend to drive or whatever I
Mm-hmm.
said, there can't be any change to that 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 behavior.
Correct. 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 Correct.
The
Yeah,
image
I
of
think
me I can afford it as
I
yet.
completely get that. Like, for example, sometimes you see this happen very often. You'd go to a friend's house, and and they'd actually have a bar, and it'll be a well-stocked bar, and it'll be stocked with, you'll have foreign liquor, you'll have all of that, and then and when it comes down to actually pouring yourself a drink, it'll be one of those IMFLs which will come out of the bar, and you'd be like, hello, I mean, is that the reason why that bottle is sitting in that bar of yours? So it's kind of absurd, right? I mean, you've got something. The whole reason why you have something is because you've got to use it. If you're not going to be using it, and if you're not going to be sharing it, what's the whole point of having it there in the first place?
So in fact, this 4x philosophy actually covers this one point, that it makes you generous, because
Uh-huh.
done with a philosophy is that even I upgrade my alcohol
Uh-huh.
4x.
Uh-huh.
The thing is that whoever comes to my house,
Uh-huh.
could be an intern in my office, or
Correct.
it could be the CEO of Densu.
Correct.
Both will get served the same alcohol.
Correct.
And I'm very clear that once I've upgraded myself, then I will always have that. And
Correct.
every person who's in that periphery of mine and friends of mine
Correct.
will always get the same thing, because it's as I said, right? If you want to get motivated by money, which to a certain extent, as an entrepreneur, you need to find that motivation, and money needs to motivate you.
Correct.
And then this 4x philosophy actually makes you patiently ambitious, because you upgrade something 4x, so it's not easy. How
Correct.
cars become very expensive to upgrade 4x,
Correct.
but also you have to takes time to achieve it. So it makes you patiently ambitious. It's almost like a combination of Usain Bolt and Dalai Lama
Correct.
of happiness chemicals, because one is serotonin based and one is dopamine based.
Correct. 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 Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good example. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I get that.
So, so
Yeah.
Shatru, I wanted to ask you some other models that you feel you have built in your life over a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
which has sort of helped you uh, find that peace of mind. So, let me give you a couple of examples of some people who have shared this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say one of my friends, he shared this thing that whenever he has a personal conflict or a professional conflict, he doesn't let it fester even for a day. He'll
Okay.
have a meeting with that person and sort it out the same day.
Okay.
Whatever he has to say sorry, whatever has to be done, because he says even one day delay
Mm-hmm.
can transfer it to a spouse, to the children, and then it's impossible to control it.
Correct.
Vishal Gondal talked about this concept that he has in his life, that he wants to improve himself every day.
Mm-hmm.
He compares himself, like, let's say he's an iPhone 12 Pro today.
Okay.
The iPhone 13 Pro is going to come someday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is the improvement he's done to himself? So he
Mm-hmm.
deserves that upgrade.
Okay.
Next year, is he a upgraded product to himself or not?
Okay.
Every single person has some philosophies that they have, which has helped them sort of uh, achieve that peace of mind and
Mm-hmm.
progress in their life. Would love to hear anything that you've come across. It could be even some of the fiction that you've written, and if there is some mythological uh, person who had a certain philosophy which you were influenced by positively and you would like to adopt it in your life, even that would be great. Anything that you can share.
Uh, I can't think of anything immediately, but I think let that stew at the back of my mind as I think one of the things that I don't know if it's a model per se. I've never analyzed it as a kind of a model, but one thing that I have definitely learned over the last 10 years in the process of writing fiction is that I have figured out that virtually everything that you do every day is some way or another improving you as a person. as long as we are consciously working towards it. So, so for example, when I look at my work, and this probably never happened when I was in journalism or in advertising. When I look at how I approach my work, everything before I started writing fiction was about that day alone. Or maybe it's 1 week, it's a 1 week window or a 15-day window, nothing more than that. I think partly because of the nature of fiction writing, the nature of the stories I tell, I have started looking at a lot of things from a much larger uh, window. And I realize that it takes a tremendous amount of time to achieve that goal that has been set. Okay, let me rephrase this. For example, when we were in journalism, or when I was in journalism, if you had a story, you would chase the story for 15 days, for 20 days, maybe a month. And within a month, you deliver the story and it'll be done, whatever, 250 words, 500 words, 1,000 words, whatever it is, it's done. But today, when I look at, for example, the Vikramaditya series, it's something that I started working on in 2013. And now we are in 2020, in 2020. And while the story is done, I am still, it's the story is still working with me, and the story is still work in progress because there are certain conversations that are happening in terms of adapting the story into an audiovisual medium and all of that. So what has happened is that this piece of work has spanned 7, 8 years. And I think that has really taught me is the ability to look at everything from a very macro perspective. And that includes being extremely patient about everything. Patience is something that is definitely I was a lot less patient than I am today. I'm a lot more patient. I'm a lot more forgiving. That's probably also a question of age, but I'm also a lot more forgiving. I think that is something that has fundamentally changed. Whenever I look at something, I don't expect immediate results. And it's not just about me, it's about any process. Uh, whether it's looking at a change in the political environment, whether it's looking at, I have become a lot more, yeah, the only word I can think of is patient. I've become a lot more patient because I realize that it doesn't matter how much you want to rush and get things done, things happen at their own pace. Uh, if one looks at nature, nature does not, the bud blooms when it has to bloom. The snow melts when it has to melt. The river descends from the mountains and meets the sea when it has to descend and meet the sea. So I think what has happened is that the cosmos works on its own time. It's not a slave of time, it's a pilgrim of patience. And I think a lot of us, we get so caught on to that, that wheel of, achieving something as soon as possible. I want to become so and so by the age of so and so, by the age of 20. I want to do this by the age of 25. I think beyond a point, again, it's, we are chasing happiness as opposed to waiting for happiness to come to us. And the more we chase happiness, it's like the carrot, right? The faster the donkey runs, the further the carrot goes. So I think a lot of it is happiness is when you're not. It happens so many times to us that we are thinking of, we want something to happen, and we are waiting and waiting and waiting for it to happen. Maybe we are waiting for a contract to happen, a mail to come through informing us that something good has happened, and every 10 minutes we are checking, nothing happens, and then we get frustrated and we say, "Chhod yaar, kuch nahi hoga." And then you're sitting and watching TV or you're doing something, and then suddenly you look at your phone, and 10 minutes ago a message has popped in saying, hello, this has happened. When you were not looking, when you were not thinking, that's when it's actually happened. So I guess that's really one of the things that I've realized, that we don't really need to chase things. They will come when they have to come. Um, Again, an example from my books. When I started writing the Vikramaditya series, and this was when it was originally conceived as a trilogy or 3 books, but then eventually they became 4 books. Honest truth be told, if at the beginning of book 1 somebody had asked me, okay, how is this big epic story that you're writing across multiple volumes, how is this going to end? And if somebody had put a gun to my head, many people did ask me, and I said, I've got an ending in mind, don't worry. But if somebody had put a gun to my head and said, okay, show me the ending, tell me what the ending is, I would have given an ending which, to be very honest with you, I was very unhappy with. I knew this was not the ending for the book. And as I said, I started writing this in 2013. December 2019, at the beginning of November, at the end of November 2019, I had finished 3 books. I've started writing the 4th book. I don't have a clear-cut ending for the series. December, I take a break. I go to a writing retreat for 1 month to sit and write. And one fine afternoon, evening, the solution just presents itself, and it's the perfect solution, the perfect ending for something which I've been writing over a period of so many years. And it just came to me. Of course, it obviously just didn't come to me. It's because I've been thinking about it. But I'd also been thinking about it from 2013 to 2019. It did not come. It came in December 2020. And it came, and that's the ending. And it's, to my mind, it's the perfect ending for the book and for the series. And it came when it had to come. So patience, I think patience is something that's very important. I've learned. Yeah.
I think, Shatru, you covered two things which are very, very connected to even the chapters in my book, right? One of the things was that sort of dots connect.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you do improves you in a certain manner.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I cover in that is that what if you could learn new things every quarter?
Right.
So, I've started learning Urdu,
Okay.
I've learned stand-up comedy, I've been learning mentalism, and I've seen that all these things in some way or the other improve me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Because stand-up comedy will make me a better speaker, and Urdu will make my thoughts a lot more clearer, the way
Mm-hmm.
I think, while mentalism increases my recall value.
Mm-hmm.
I think more and more things that I learn, the better I'd become at my primary core, which could be a digital marketing consultant.
Correct.
I've seen that this is something which has happened. And the other thing, I think, so meditation to a certain extent, I've done Vipassana, I've
Mm-hmm.
meditated about 300 days in a year. I think that patience is the other thing which is very critical for happiness, because sometimes they say that happiness is overrated and peace of mind is underrated.
Uh-huh.
And for peace of mind, there is this need for acceptance,
Correct.
and to actually, to a certain extent, that 4x philosophy that I have about every upgrade that I do, in a way, also forces me to have this patience.
Correct.
Because, if you want to upgrade your house 4x, my first house took me 17 years to upgrade,
Correct.
right? My first car took me 8 years to upgrade.
Okay.
So the fact of the matter is that every single thing that you have,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to upgrade it 4x,
Mm-hmm.
it takes significant amount of time to
Time.
upgrade, because nobody's willing to even give you a home loan, because
Correct.
4x,
Correct.
if you want to take a 1.5x house, probably you'll get a home loan.
Correct.
If you want to upgrade your house 4x, you won't even get a
Nobody is going to give it to you. Correct.
So automatically it forces you to have this ambition, but also have this tremendous amount of patience
Correct.
to achieve this per se.
Yeah,
So
it really forces us to recalibrate the way we look at what we want to achieve. It also, I think, somewhere along the one of the things about patience is that, with patience, the other thing that comes is humility. I think it comes, and it's almost like a shadow, because when you're patient, you also realize that, you cannot dictate terms to the cosmos. And the moment you kind of accept that, I am not the master of the cosmos, you become a little bit more humble. And I think humility, to my mind, humility is something that's a virtue that everyone needs to kind of cultivate a little bit more. But yeah, let's see.
Yeah. So I think that is one place where I can share something. If you are in advertising and you are a part of an agency,
Uh-huh.
then you will learn humility very quickly.
Oh, very quickly. Yes, yes, yes. Very, very quickly. Very quickly.
So I have this joke that if you're CEO of an advertising agency, then in terms of hierarchy, you are below the intern at the client's end.
Exactly.
If you don't have the philosophy, you're going to be very, very unhappy in the agency world.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Yes.
So, Shatru, I think basically what I wanted to do was that of all the research you've done, the books you've read, right?
Hmm.
It'll be very interesting to, if you can think of some models or belief systems, even like the belief system that you mentioned about, patience, right?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think it's a reasonably good belief system.
Hmm.
Suddenly what it does is it brings you this thing that some things takes that time to solve, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes what happens is that whether it's you can't produce a kid in 4.5 months if you try
Correct.
really hard, right? So
Yes.
everything takes its own sweet time, and the fact of the matter, that's a great mental model or a belief system, right? Are there
Correct.
anything else you can think of, even from a spiritual point of view or religious point of view or some
Hmm.
mythology point of view,
Hmm.
that beliefs and mental models
Hmm.
have helped some person achieve happiness or achieve this peace of mind? If you again keep it in your mind, if you can think of something, would love to hear. But otherwise, we can continue the
I
conversation.
I think, and this is something. It's just funnily, this has got nothing to do with with any of the research that I have done. But there is this there is this anecdotal story which I had once read, and it just kind of comes back to me because it does kind of talk about a belief system uh, which I think is important that we all kind of keep in mind. It's probably a story that you've heard of, but I'll just kind of repeat it for the sake of the conversation that we are having. This actually goes back to it's the story of two Buddhist monks. They are two Buddha bhikshus, and so there's an elderly bhikshu, and so one of them is an elderly bhikshu, elderly in the sense he's probably 45, 50, and the other guy is a young man of maybe about 25. So the two of them are kind of, they're walking through a jungle. They're coming from somewhere, and they're headed back towards their vihara, their monastery. So it's a jungle, and they're walking through the jungle, and it's getting dark, kind of approaching twilight. When they hear when they see a lady sitting under a tree. So the two of them, she's a young woman. So the two of them stop and they kind of look at her and say, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" And what this woman does is that she says that, "Look, I'm lame, and I was actually being carried through this forest. But what has happened is that the person who was taking me has left me here and gone somewhere, and that person hasn't come back so far. And I can't go. I'm stuck here because I'm lame. I can't walk." So the two bhikshus look at one another and they don't know what to do. So what the young man does is that he lifts this woman. He picks her up in his arms, and she's a young woman. She's attractive, and he picks her up and he starts walking. And so she says, "My village is about, it's 10 minutes away." And when the young man does this, when the young bhikshu does this, the older man is a little, he's the older bhikshu is a little indignant. He's kind of a little taken aback and he's a little irritated. But he doesn't say anything. He accompanies them. They reach the village, and the young man puts the lady down at her house, and they turn around and they start walking. And the older bhikshu is indignant. He said, "What have you done? Don't you know that we have, our one of the oaths is an oath of not looking at women or not touching women and, interacting with young women and all of that." and we have sworn celibacy and all of that. So how could you do something like this? You've broken your vows. So the younger guy says, but what do I do? I mean, like, we couldn't have left her there. He says, no, but you've still broken a vow. Anyway, so they come to the monastery, and the young guy goes off. But the elder guy, elder man is very indignant and he's very angry. So the elder bhikshu goes to the master, and the master looks at him, and the master immediately senses that, there's something wrong. So he says, what's wrong? So this guy is very, he's got this frown on his face, and so he goes up and says, something very bad happened. So this guy says, what happened? And so this fellow says, we were walking through the jungle and blah blah blah. A woman was there, lame, and this young guy, this fellow, he just picks her up and he takes her and he carries her. He carries her in his arms and he takes her, and for 10 minutes he's walking with her in his arms, and So the old man says, okay, wait. Long story short, what happened? He says nothing. He went and he put her down at her house, and that's it. So the master looks at him and says, "That's it." He says, "Yeah, that's it." So he says, "He put her down, right?" So she says, "Yeah." He says, "Then why are you still carrying her? Why are you still carrying the woman?" And it's a tremendous parable. It's a fascinating story on how we allow our own, petty prejudices, obsessions, whatever we have, how we allow that to kind of dominate us, and it becomes so much of an obsession for us when actually it's something which is so simple, and it's just that it's just something that struck me. I don't even know if it really answers what you have in mind, but it's just something that struck me. It's a story that I completely love.
But so actually it does answer it, because see, I believe that so many times a cause of unhappiness is because we're still carrying something, right? And like, sometimes people have asked me that, so like, what do you think of this, or what do you think of me? And actually my answer is, I don't think of you, because you're not in the scheme of things that I
Correct.
think about. In fact, one of the, so this Urdu learning that I'm doing,
Uh-huh.
I wrote a share a couple of weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
In a way, is somewhat in context with what we discussed right now.
Okay, what's that?
Basically, it goes that जब दोस्तों से उम्मीद ना रही,
Uh-huh.
तब दुश्मनों का जख्म भुलाना सीखा.
Zaham Bhulana Sikha. Okay, yes.
Basically, what happens is, when you realize that you've reached this phase where you have no expectations of anybody anymore,
Correct. Correct.
especially from your friends,
Correct.
that's the time when you realize that now, if you don't have expectations of your friends, then why should we keep enmity against our
Absolutely.
enemies, right? And
Absolutely.
the grudge and the revenge and that old things that we're
Correct.
talking about, right?
Correct.
It's like,
Correct.
when you've forgotten expectations, then it's important to forget all the grudges you have for your enemies,
Absolutely.
right?
No, I completely agree. And I think that's also one of the things that's so important, that we carry we carry so much of emotional baggage from from past relationships, uh, from relationships that are not even meaningful. It's not as if those are still relationships that are important today. They are relationships that were important 20 years ago, but today you don't even know where that person is, but you still carry that grudge, remember something. It's so bizarre, because it's so much easier to let that be and embrace the new. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think the saddest sentence that represents a pretty significant portion of our population is "log kya kahenge." And I
Yes.
think the amount of grief and misery it has caused every single person in our country is unbelievable,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I had a friend of mine, he used to say, when, we चार लोग क्या कहेंगे? He said, वो चार लोगों को पकड़ के गोली मार दो, then we are safe. Like that. That's all you really need to do. You just need to, knock those four guys off, and then we are safe and sound. Very true. Uh, this entire concept of, this in economics, you've got this, these necessities. You've got these necessities, different necessities. So you've got this thing called necessities of convention, which is where you've got to do things which society demands or convention demands. And it's so bizarre that it's such an institutionalized idea that we've got to meet the demands of society, conventions of society, which is so absurd. uh, we sacrifice so much of personal joy simply because we are afraid of what the other person is going to think of us, how he's going to judge us. It's very sad. So much of our desire to own things is just purely that.
Yeah.
It's just that, just keeping up with the Joneses. It's
Yeah. So in fact, uh, a friend of mine, his name is Amar Chirani.
hmm
He wrote a very interesting book called Purposehood. And one of the
okay.
things that he taught me, we were having dinner at his place, and he taught me that, you know, you'll always come across beliefs, and these beliefs can empower you, and you can come across beliefs that will limit you.
Correct.
So if you can just have lead a life where you adopt all the empowering beliefs and reject all the limiting beliefs, you will grow every day in your life and
Correct.
try to follow it to a great extent. And what you said about conventions, right? There's so many things that are not relevant anymore.
Absolutely.
But the fact of the matter is that, so actually Anupam Mittal, who's the CEO of Shadi and the founder of
hmm
Shadi.com,
hmm
he spoke about decision making, and I found it very empowering, right?
Okay.
What he said was that when I take a decision, I take it based on what is the rational reason for it,
hmm
what is my emotional reason for it,
hmm
is there my conditioning at play,
Okay.
lastly, is there my ego or vanity at play.
Correct.
So any decision you take can be a decision powered by emotion or vanity.
Correct.
As long as you're aware of it,
Correct.
it's fine.
Correct.
You should not take it you think is a rational reason, but actually is driven by conditioning,
Correct.
or it is driven by vanity. So whatever it is, right? As being aware of it, then you should be fine. So
Correct.
I found it extremely. So now whenever I'm taking a decision, I always think that okay, is my ego driving this? Is my conditioning driving it? And what you said about convention, there are so many things that we've been conditioned with.
Correct.
Unfortunately, they're driving our decisions.
True. 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 Very true.
Okay, on that note, uh, great to have you back, Webov, to summarize some of our conversation and any questions you have for us. Unfortunately, it's not television, but there is actually somebody playing basketball in my building compound. So that's the noise. A little bit
No,
background noise that
no, but
comes.
I think it's important that they're happy, and I think that's important. So
Absolutely.
for what in the context of what we have been doing, that disturbance is most welcome because it obviously means they're happy. So that's
Yes.
good.
So I wrote Shatru. I thought once the television का आवाज आ रहा है, and then the autocorrect was share. So I'm like यार ये autocorrect was there.
Yeah, I know. So I thought you said okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
So it's a fabulous conversation, with very different aspects and all of that. There's just a few things that I want to say that you were talking about patience, Shatru,
Mm-hmm.
where you were saying that when things has to happen, it'll happen,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is so much needed for us youngsters to understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm In 2012, I founded India's first midnight food home delivery service called
Okay.
Midnight Hunger Solutions.
Okay. When was this?
Was
2000.
2012.
Okay.
Midnight Hunger Solutions. We
Okay.
were India's first midnight food home delivery service.
Okay.
And what happened was, during I think after 12, what really happens is that people are either extremely hungry, or they're very impulsive, right?
Correct.
They would call, and then we would tell them 40 minutes mein khana pahunch raha hai, and then they would call back after 10 minutes like that,
Correct.
khana kidhar hai.
Correct. Correct.
No, it is just that if people understand it, that patience is the key,
Correct.
and when things have to happen, like in the broader frame of mind, things will happen.
Correct.
And I think it is so important because we really want things to happen so fast. And you spoke about patience, how after age you understand patience. I think I wish I was a part of this conversation 10 years ago. My life would have been a little more different.
I wish I was a part of this conversation 10 years ago. Then my life would have been a lot more different. No, I think
Vivek,
a lot of
Vivek is
these.
here to blame. Why
No,
did you come up with this concept?
exactly. No, I think the whole point is that, in a lot of these cases, it's only when you live that process that you understand, because it's obviously made an impact on you. That's when you really understand its importance. Otherwise, it's just, good to know stuff.
And
It's ironic, whenever we are talking about that we need to talk and have patience, and then we are talking about why didn't it come to me earlier?
Exactly.
that's the irony of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And also you mentioned about carrying baggage. Now, I have a very close relationship with baggage myself. I've
Okay.
been carrying emotional baggage of my childhood. I've been carrying emotional baggages of my exes, and all of that, and then when I understood to let it go, and then what happens with that, because letting go is perhaps one of the most scariest things when you do it the first time. It is like bungee jumping, right?
Correct. Correct.
When you are taken a little higher above the ground, and then when you see the horizon, you realize, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Correct.
Can we get down, kind of a feel, but
Correct.
that is the moment when you see beyond the horizon, and then you're ready for the jump. That is the time you realize how important it is to let go.
Correct, correct, correct. No, in fact, that's also one of the problems that when and a lot of people keep talking about the fact that you must let go of emotional baggage, but uh, not many people know how to do that either, and it's not easy. Because to let go of emotional baggage, first of all, you have to acknowledge that you have emotional baggage, and a lot of people just refuse to do that. So if you refuse to acknowledge what you have, there is no question of letting it go.
I think because majority of us live in denial, na?
A lot of us do. A lot of us do, and I think it's also because it's not been nobody really has kind of caught hold of us by the scruff of our necks and said, this is emotional baggage.
Correct.
It's not been nobody has really told us that this is what is holding you back. So yeah, I guess so.
And so with the baggage bit, if you can just let go of the baggage, and we can walk around freely, you will realize how it is quick. It's easier to run around, easier to jump around, dance, and have fun in your life.
Absolutely. If nothing else, it at least frees you up to acquire new baggage, which is which at least it's going to be a new experience. You're likely to be hurt in some other way, but it's okay. At least you learn a new way of getting hurt. So
On the similar lines of what you said, when I was planning to quit smoking, I
mhm,
realized that you cannot quit smoking. You will have to exchange it with another habit, right? That
okay,
is why if you see people are chewing gums, or they would either get into an eating disorder because they choose, perhaps consciously or subconsciously, another habit. So I think the same thing with an emotional baggage. When you
possibly.
perhaps you need to have that distinction with yourself, that how to perhaps be able to identify which belief is empowering and which belief is disempowering. Vivekji, what is your thought on this?
So I think I've read a lot of books on some of the topics that I've covered here. Like, let's say one of the things that I read was this book called Willpower Instinct. So what Willpower Instinct talked about was that willpower gets exhausted. So they did an example where they got 20 people into a room where there was a sort of a bowl of cookies kept, and they were told not to eat the cookies. And another room where the bowl of cookies were kept, and everybody was allowed to eat the cookies they wanted to. So then both groups were given a mathematical problem that could not be solved. The first group that was not allowed to eat the cookies gave up in an average of 22 minutes, while the other group, which was allowed to eat the cookies, gave up after 1 or 10 minutes. So they lasted double the time just for one reason, that they were not allowed to eat the cookies. So what happens is that when you're trying to give up smoking or getting anything, a lot of time what happens is, I've seen is that if you don't know this concept that willpower is exhausted, then I know people who will try to give up alcohol, smoking, and sweets and everything at the same time. Now that is never going to work out,
Hmm.
right? So when they go in the health diet, they try to say, okay, I'm going to give up sugar, but I'm also going to give up alcohol, I'm going to give up this, I'm going to give up all the things, right? So if you know that willpower is exhausted, so one of the things you start doing is that when I go to this five-star place where cookies generally come with coffee, I always send the cookies back. Earlier, I would keep the cookies there and not eat it,
Hmm.
not realizing that I'm exhausting myself for no reason at all.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think there are a lot of these things that are triggers. There are these things where you got replacement. But I think it's a very important, if you can be in the moment, right? And maybe just have this one belief that somebody taught me this. He says that his mental model was that when he didn't want to do something, he would just tell himself, not today. So he says that, no, instead of saying, I won't have the dessert, I won't have it for a month, he says, just not today. So once you have that, not today, it's also seen that procrastination, I think it's very, very important. Uh, the way I've sort of, there is a book called Indistractable by Nir Ayalo, that Israeli author, where he says that if you get a thought, then you're very tempted to go to Google and check it out and everything, right? But if you can just wait for 10 minutes and after that, look at it, then you'll be able to complete what you're doing. But it's just that not right now. So I would just say that not today, not right now. If you say, okay, I'm not going to smoke, not today, just not today. That's it. We're not saying I'm not going to smoke the rest of my life. just not today, then it becomes so much easier to accomplish a lot of difficult things in life just by having this one philosophy, not today.
No, I completely agree with you, Vaibhav. I think, sorry, Vivek, I completely agree with you because I think, every victory is a small victory. It So, for example, again, when a lot of people who want to write books, for example, come to me and they tell me that I want to write a book. uh, and then so what I usually tell them is that, okay, don't say that I'm going to write a book, because the first thing that happens is that when you say I'm going to write a book, what you are seeing is you're looking at the finished product. So in your mind you're looking at a novel which is, say, 250 pages or 350 pages, and that itself can be intimidating. Just the thought of the finished product, which is this, अरे मेरे को इतना लिखना पड़ेगा. So as opposed to that, I say that, just say that I'm going to tell a story. No, a story can be told in 5 minutes, it can be told in 2 hours, it can be told in a week, or it can be told in 5 months. So once you get into the process of telling, every little bit that you achieve is a step forward. And then of course, we go back to the famous, the Confucian thing of, a journey of 1,000 miles. And that's really what it is. I mean, like every little step you take, it's incremental gains, but at the end of 6 months, you've got something which is tremendous. Or if you're trying to give up a habit, at the end of 6 months, you don't have something which is tremendous. So either way, it works. So yeah.
Vivekji, quick question to you. I think you are perhaps the one of the few guys who I know is a master at time management, right? Because he's doing so many multiple things and he's still able to do all of that. What is that one advice you want to give people who are very bad at time management? Basically, I'm asking for a friend, but it's for me. It's like
Great.
that.
We always ask only for friends.
Yeah.
So, see, I think basically I probably have read lots of books on time management, right? So there are very interesting sort of insights on each of these books, right? So let's say you have 7 habits where you have this quadrant 2 activities which are important but not urgent, right? And the more and more important tasks you do, then you will have lesser urgent tasks. But I think some of the things that have worked for me the best, right? I think one of the things that have worked for me the best is that sometimes this perfection is the enemy of time management. Because what happens is sometimes, let's say if I'm capable of doing something 90% and it takes me 100 hours to do it, taking it to 100% may take me 900 hours more. So instead of doing 10 things 90%, I may end up doing only one thing supposedly 100%. There is no 100%. So and the closer I get to 100%, the more and more hours I have to spend in that perfection. Now the thing is that lots of other things people can't take it from 0 to 90, but if I throw enough people at it, then 90 can be taken to 95, which is probably where I would have reached in any case. So I've made this a very conscious choice that from morning to evening, I'll attempt to do only things that other than me, no one else can do. So if I'm doing this interview right now, I believe that I can't delegate this to somebody else. So I would do it. If I have to hire a team member and I have to talk to him or to pitch to an investor and raise capital from him or talk to a client and talk about strategy with him, those are the tasks I will do. But as soon as I find anything, right? So let's say right now I'm gifting some product to a friend of mine. So basically what I've done is I messaged my assistant. He's coordinating a driver. They are going to take it to me in a function, and he's going to get it dropped to my friend's place. But as soon as that WhatsApp was sent, my job was done. Even ordering from Amazon for me is WhatsApp. So what I do is every minute that I have, I'll ask myself, is somebody else who probably, if I were to look at it from a very commercial angle, whose mana rate is lower than what mine is at this point in time of my life, can that person do the job? So I'll have a personal assistant. I have also have a professional chief of staff in the company. And I've realized that a lot of times people are very insecure about letting go and doing things. So even if I'm doing anything at all, right, I'll ask myself very simple question: can somebody else be doing it? Maybe I'll do it today, but if I realize that somebody else can do it, tomorrow it'll be done by somebody else. Now he may do it lesser than me, it's okay with me, but I'll accomplish a lot more. And also you lead a much happier life, because what happens is every person then can spend time in doing things that he's good at. I actually don't work too much on my weaknesses. I feel that working your weaknesses just creates more mediocre weaknesses. So I rather specialize on my strengths and become the best in the world in my strengths. So a lot of times you waste a lot of time in trying to improve your weaknesses, but you don't accomplish anything, right? So I feel that it's trying to beautify the pig. First of all, you're not very successful, and then you end up irritating the pig.
No, I think it's a very valid point, Vivek. Also, because the thing is that it doesn't matter how much you try and fix your weaknesses, you'll get a little better, but there will be 20 people who are still better than you are. So you're still you might from 30 you might go up to 20, but there are still 19 people who are still better than you. So I think it definitely makes better sense that you strengthen your strengths, because that's really uh, that's where you're punching above your weight. So I completely agree with that. I think it makes perfect sense to say hell with the weaknesses. As long as it's not a major handicap that's going to uh, create a big problem for you. I think yeah, I buy your argument completely.
I think this is such a fabulous conversation that we have, but unfortunately, we all are running out of time. And, we would love to extend this, but then perhaps a part two. Why not? And, there is just one thing that I want to say because, Shatru very rightly mentioned, Log Kya Kahenge. Vivek has this fabulous ink talk where he speaks about, getting settled down is like such a big crime kind of a scene or a sin. I just want to tell all the people who are watching this that if Shatru would have been wondering what log kya kahenge, he would have sat in his comfy job, like how we said in a different publication, writing about some different business owner and not getting into the space that he is in, which is super fascinating. And I think we wouldn't have had this platform if Vivek would have thought ki, Arey, if I put myself out in the internet and if I'm doing this show, Arey, log kya kahenge, I might as well just stick to my angel investing and my companies and all of that. So both these guys that you see and perhaps even me, we are a product of लोग क्या कहेंगे, भाड़ में जाए वो लोग, हम लोग अपना काम करेंगे और अपने काम में excel करेंगे.
The thing is also, Vaibhav, that whatever you do, there'll be people who will detract, and well-intentioned people. It's not that they would necessarily want to bring you down. Sometimes the best, the people who kind of limit you and are actually people who mean well. But the truth of the matter is that no matter what you do, somebody or the other is going to say this is not going to work. This is a bad idea. You will fail. So आदमी करे तो क्या करे, कुछ तो you have to do something.
We all know this very well because even Vivek comes from the advertising industry, and he'll pitch a great idea and he'll say ये नहीं यार वो क्या होगा. But on that note, I think we should just go ahead and do what we really want to do. There was something in my mind which I got, which kind of got off, but लोग क्या कहेंगे, लोग का काम है कहना, हमारा काम है करना, तो हम करते रहेंगे और ऐसे भी और यूनिक वीडियोस लाते रहेंगे आप लोगों के लिए. तो प्लीज लाइक शेयर सब्सक्राइब एंड डोंट फॉरगेट शत्रु का बुक आ रहा है ऑन 20th December. Perhaps if you're seeing it later, you know what you need to do. Just go to Amazon and buy it, and don't forget to check out Vivek's book. I was saying our book, no, Vivek's book, which is Happiness is a Muscle. You will learn something very interesting and very creative things that perhaps like how Shatru and I said that 10 साल पहले मालूम होता तो लाइफ थोड़ी और आसान होती. Thank you everyone so much for being a part of this. Shatru, thank you. And just one quick thing that I wanted to say that came into my mind, that I've understood, and I want even people to understand the small differentiation, saying that when it is others problem and when it's your own problem. Like for example, if I would have approached you for this interview and if you would have said no, I don't want to be a part of it, it's not my problem. It's your problem that you don't want to be a part of this.
Correct,
right?
correct.
If we learn and we understand, our life is going to be a lot more easier. And like how Vivek says, you can cruise through it. Am I right, Vivek? What do you think?
You said it all. It'll be presumptuous of me to tell someone whom I'm interviewing that it'll be his problem, but you said it. So
no, Vivek, I completely buy that. Like so when it's also this. It's a simple way of kind of again coming to terms with it. Somebody rejects you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are wrong. It's just that that person was didn't think you were important enough. But that's okay. There are others who. So there are people who read me and there are people who won't. Those who read me love me. Those who haven't read me, well, they are missing out on something and they don't know what it is. So yeah, it's just that.
Super. So 20th December, we have Shatru's book coming, and around that time, Happiness is a Muscle will also be on Amazon or a store next to you. But stay safe and stay away from a lot of people. Thank you, everyone, once again.